you guys so much for having me here today. My topic, as Thomas said, is about the spark, keeping your creative spark alive, inspiring collaboration and creativity with your teams. And as Thomas mentioned, I have quite a lot of experience working in house and agency side with some incredible brands. And I've understood from the years working with, gosh, probably 10, 20, 30 teams that there are themes that repeat themselves again and again when I'm working with these teams. Where do we hit roadblocks? How do we overcome them? And how do we collaborate together to make the work that we want to do? So before we dive into the case studies that I prepared for you today, I wanted to back up a little bit to how I got into creative, how I developed my own philosophy on creative and making the kind of work that I really love to do. We're all here to do the work that speaks to us. We all have a unique seat at the table, and it's important that we continue to nurture the creative voice that we have when we have that seat at the table. So, starting off here, I attended a photography exhibition in Spain 20 years ago, and this photo changed the course of my life. It was an exhibition on the Spanish Civil War, and I was struck by this beautiful photo, the humanity, the empathy in the midst of a room of war photography. There's this image that's saying to me, pay attention to this face, that this is a face of hope, and it's also the face of a lost innocence. And it made me intensely curious about the photographer behind this work. So, again, changed the course of my life. I did deep study on the photographer Robert Capa and war photographers in general, but Capa stood out to me the most. His work had that incredible human empathy that spoke to me. It's hard when you see a lot of conflict photographers and conflict in war photography. You don't often look at it with fresh eyes, but he was always finding a different angle. What can I say that's unique? What's really special about this story that I can get somebody to pay attention, to sit up and listen? So, Kappa had this very famous quote: if your pictures aren't good enough, you're not close enough. And that to me was the heart of what I was seeing in that image. If your pictures aren't good enough, you're not close enough. It's spending the time with the subject, it's being intimately invested in their lives and in their hopes and dreams, and really getting at the essence of what you want to say. You see this in the photography here. It has a double meaning. It's that physical proximity, but it's also the heart, the emotional intimacy with that subject. Kappa invaded Normandy on D-Day with American troops. These days he's not using a zoom lens. He's using a 35 or a 50. He's right up in there in that their faces, and you feel that comes across in the photography. And you see our photographers today doing the same thing. We are not responsive anymore to images of climate change, but what about an image of a firefighter who's doing a Davy and Goliath kind of experience? We don't know what the end of the climate change will be, how it will turn out, but we need to see the people who are on the front lines experiencing this. Same with mothers in the Ukraine. We can't respond always to the war photography, but what about a more tender story that pulls us in a little bit more? So, though I didn't become a photojournalist, I did photography for a while. I ended up becoming a creative director, and I wanted the same things as Kappa and the photojournalists. I want people to pay attention to the stories. I want to find a unique perspective that people haven't seen before and go a little bit deeper. I'm a woman in creative. If I have a seat at the table, I want to find what's unique and special, what hasn't been done. How can I tweak a paradigm to find something new? So, with that, we're going to go on to some case studies here. We're going to talk about overcoming common pitfalls, getting that emotionally deep creative work, finding out where those inspirations come from, and keeping collaboration alive with your team. So I'm going to start off with a couple mystery projects, and I wanted to bring them up today. I had two projects go sideways in my career, and they went quite badly, but I learned a great deal from them. They were incredible learning experiences, but I would get myself in trouble if I told you all the dirty, dirty details, and we don't want that out on YouTube. But the lessons are important, and they're important to visit right now. So, creative death, there's two big causes. Number one, the first death was internal politics. My team was tasked to come up with a big, ballsy idea. The brief said something like, do the idea that people won't believe you were allowed to say that. So we did it. That was our idea. We road showed it. We got the executive team on board. And at the 11th hour, they pulled the idea. It wasn't right for the brand. Mismatch, misalignment on that leadership, and it happens. It wasn't the biggest deal. I understood it. I was disappointed, but no big deal. Frankenstein effect is harder to come over, to get over, excuse me, is when you have that great idea, you have that emotionally intimate story, you pitch it, you lobby for the resources, you shoot it, you make it, and notes pile on notes, pile on notes. And this happened to me with a creative project I was really excited about. And I was outranked and outnumbered by, probably 10 people, and the project went sideways. It lost that initial intent, it lost the human story, and when it launched, it resonated with no one. I think we literally had zero engagement. So what do? We have these wipeout experiences, the sort of why bother? Is this the right career that I'm in? I mean, should I be a nurse? Or I'm entertaining all kinds of ideas these days. Maybe a dog walker. I like dogs don't get mad at you. But how can we renew our sense of hope and possibility and our excitement? I attended some workshops yesterday and I was so touched by how excited people are to be in creative. We have an amazing industry. It's rejuvenating, it's ideas, it's creativity, it's collaboration. So how do we overcome these wipeouts? Well, for me, I love this quote that competing is exciting and winning is exhilarating, but the true prize is the self knowledge and understanding that you've gained along the way. And that to me is the rub. How do we go from these wipeouts to resilience? Is to really learn to love the totality of the process. For me, I love postmortems. I want to find out what I can learn. If I'm going to make a mistake, and I'm going to make many, many more in my career, I don't want to make the same mistake twice. I want to surround myself with the smartest people I can that disagree with me. I used to think being a leader is your team agrees with you. You're the queen, Queen Carrie. Queen Carrie sounds nice to me. I'll take that. But I want people, more importantly, to be honest with me. I want to surround myself with team members who can be honest and give me feedback so I don't step into the same mistake twice. And lastly, invest in that process, but don't be so attached to the outcome. We think of the Super Bowl commercials we saw. There's 75, 80, how many? We remember maybe one or two. The media writes about 10. You're not going to win every time. Every project isn't going to land as you hoped, but it doesn't mean it wasn't a rich and important experience. So, with that, let's move on to projects that went quite a bit better than our projects who died. And this is working with Ladder and LeBron James. Ladder was a sports supplement brand that LeBron and Arnold Schwarzenegger founded together. So the state of the creative when I joined, I call it the trawler effect. Pretty general, not very specific, not very inviting. I don't get a sense of the brand or why LeBron would be affiliated, let alone be the founder of this brand. And as a photographer nerd, if you haven't already guessed, I am a photographer nerd. I wanted to improve the photography overall. There's lots of opportunity here. So why do we want to do that in the first place? Why do we need to elevate? It's like Thomas said earlier, standing out from the crowd. Your biggest competition isn't the other brands in the category, it's indifference. And this is Kevin Lynch, who revolutionized Oatly brand. He's not there anymore, but a huge creative voice. And that is true. People won't care about your brand if you don't make them care. And so you want to take that trawling from those generic, general, vague ideas to something very specific and resonant. And I call that going fly fishing. So we're going to go fly fishing a little bit here. So, starting with what moves you. If you want to go from a place where, I'm not really invested in this creative, I don't love it, there's a lot of opportunity for improvement, you can start with what moves you personally. As I mentioned, we have a seat at the table. Everyone here has a unique perspective. I want to know what you think. I want to know what you think. What do we bring, each of us? And it's what moves us first and foremost. And to me, it's Kappa, it's that perspective. What kind of characters and storylines do I gravitate towards? And what do I love about my subject? With LeBron, there's so much to love. That was the easiest part. So around the time we were concepting this shoot for LeBron, I listened to an interview with Abby Wambach, the great soccer player. She was reflecting on winning the ESPY award with Peyton Manning and Kobe Bryant. She says, "We just won the same damn award, same sweat, same sacrifice. Yet the three of us are walking into three very different retirements." And she was talking about the pay disparity and really needing to spend the next 40, 50 years of her life hustling when she had just accomplished so much. And that wasn't what was going to be happening with her counterparts. And that to me was that initial spark of the idea. Does the world need another LeBron workout video? I didn't think so. I didn't think it would resonate. I didn't think it would be particularly special, but I wanted to know if his team was willing to let us introduce a woman into the space and bring on a little bit of a healthy, respectful, playful challenge. And that's what we did. We started out with Abby as the idea. It wasn't going to be Abby specifically, it wouldn't be quite appropriate. Again, what do we love about our subject, LeBron? For me, it's not just his athleticism, it's his sense of humor. He's incredibly funny. I love him in Trainwreck. If you haven't seen that, it's hilarious. We were going to be shooting in Akron. We had the great benefit of shooting in his hometown. So we studied, what can we find out about how he shoots when he's home on Instagram? What's his drive to the gym like? We wanted all these fine little details that would make us feel like this is a LeBron brand. He personally is in this video. It's his brand. We wanted to feel like it was coming from him. And the gym space, a lot of the brands in the category had these very dark, oppressive, incredibly kind of scary basement gyms. And we wanted to tell the story of the underdog, the sort of the early riser who puts in the overtime, the person who leaves their house in the dark, the sun's coming up when they're putting in their work. And so we wanted a lighter, a brighter, a more airy space. And lastly, our underdog hero. So Steph Chung was a woman on the latter roster. She was a physician's assistant by day and a CrossFit athlete by night and weekend, an incredible powerhouse. And we just thought they would make a interesting odd couple. And when you pitch LeBron's team an idea, they will tell you no. They will tell you no, but they really gravitated towards this. And I will tell you, friends, if I can pitch an idea to his team and live to see the day, you can do anything. This was a very scary experience, but it was a really fun one. And this was our campaign. We did exactly that. And we were going after, again, that unique angle on this story. We don't need to know that much more about LeBron's fame, but can we leverage that to shine a light on somebody else? At the moment, there was quite a lot of violence towards AAPI community and still is. We have a lot of violence in general, but is there a spotlight that I can kind of bring someone into and make space for them? And that's what we wanted to do here and really inspire the next generation of athletes. That's what Ladder was all about. So, some results from this. We got lots of fan love. LeBron posted the spot. He wasn't obligated to do so. It just made our whole day. But one of the fan notes, people said at the beginning, I thought it was a movie trailer. And that to me was the best compliment. We don't want to be selling to people, we want to be telling them a story. And because of all those details we had in there about Akron, it felt like a movie. It was very cinematic, it had a great feeling to it. So, Shorty finalists, Digital Ad Awards, but importantly for the brand, and this is really critical, it goes back to what Thomas said, stand out from the crowd, but you also have to, we don't do this just to feel good, we have to show an ROI to our brands. And as I'm going along doing projects, I'm saving stats, I'm talking to the tech team, I'm taking a before and after. What can I show? How can I prove this ROI to the business? And it'll help me get the resources the next time we want to do that. So, our takeaways from going from that trawling, that very general creative idea to fly fishing, something that's specific and emotionally resonant. You start with what moves you personally. You have that seat at the table. How do you want to use it? What kind of story can I get emotionally invested in? What type of characters and storylines do I gravitate towards? Think about White Lotus. How many archetypes are in one episode? The villain, the clown, the lovers, the adventurer. Is there a story type that jumps out at you every time you watch a movie? It's a great place to start. And what do I love about my subject? So, moving on to our last case study here is Body by Beachbody, keeping collaboration alive. So, when I joined Beachbody, it had been quite a while since they had had a big creative hit. Long ago, long gone were the days with P90X Insanity. They hadn't really hit something big in a while. And I was brought on to really help that. The consumer had moved on. It was no longer bodybuilders. It was people during the pandemic who wanted to work from home. And they were people or work out from home, people for whom Peloton, SoulCycle, Equinox, the sexy brands didn't quite speak to. So we needed to find a way to speak to that new consumer. And unfortunately, we have a very siloed business and a very siloed creative team. It's very hard to get new thinking going there. And that was the challenge. If you have a lone wolf situation, a lone wolf siloed business, you need to find a way to make them a wolf pack. That's where you're going to get your big ideas. That's where the all the creative energy from all the creative people are going to bounce off of each other. And your idea, that initial spark, is going to grow and grow and grow. So how do we start to do that? How do we break up a lone wolf situation? I love the writer Anne Lamott. She has this expression "wait," WAIT, for she uses it for her adult children when she's wanting to connect with them. And why are they not connecting me? They don't talk to me. Da, da, da. WAIT, wait, stands for why am I talking? Why am I talking? Why would anybody listen to me? Why would they talk if I'm doing all the talking? So, breaking up that lone wolf situation is knowing how to ask the right questions of your team. When was the last time you felt really proud of something you made? What do you need for me to do your best work? And what kind of work will really get you excited to show up every day? And if you ask this in a group setting, I will tell you now, you'll get the Care Bear stare. What I call is a Care Bear stare when everyone's on Zoom and they're, you go first, you go first. So these are one on one conversations, and it'll take time for people to open up to you. But eventually, you're going to be prepared to hear some really difficult answers. I used to love creative, but now we're just like a Kinko's. I've heard we're a Kinko's, we're a Vistaprint, we're just ticket takers. They always kill our big ideas. They is usually CEO, executive leadership, brand, marketing. And lastly, everything is a rush. We don't have time to do great work. And we are now, anyone in creative knows we're facing a really difficult moment here. Everything's highly reactive. Budget slash, people gone that we used to have. We are in a highly reactive moment here. And it's understandable that why everything is a rush, but we can still do some great work. So, how do you get to that place? In the case of Beachbody, it turned out they needed a good leader. What a big surprise. And that was what I was there to help them with. They needed leadership willing to take risks, someone to pitch and defend their good ideas. They had great ideas. They had nobody to really lobby for them, and really getting those resources to bring those ideas to life. And that's what we did. It took a while. It took about a year, but from this lone wolf team, we became a wolf pack. And what was really cool about Beachbody is that 25 years of doing fitness videos, they had a really rich and sophisticated production team. They had directors, they had DPs, they had equipment, they had producers, and they just needed that front person to defend the ideas, to pitch them and to say, you're going to make money off of these ideas, I guarantee. So the first campaign that we did was to speak to that target consumer. As I mentioned, I've got the seat at the table. I want to use it wisely. I'm not a parent, but I can tell you during the pandemic, there is no one on earth I felt sorrier for outside of the first responders than parents. I thought parents really got screwed, and still are really. But this was the story we landed on: is how can we speak to moms and say that you can parent and you can still take care of yourself. And this is what we did. So, results from this: one of the highest performing ads of the year. It's still running about 2 years later. I still see iterations. So, again, when we talk about ROI and amortizing your shoot, if you can show metrics that this spot hasn't fatigued, it's still making money for the company, you want to save those case studies so that you can use that to lobby in the future. 130% increase in site visits, 50% conversion rate. And all through the little notes that we got people saying, wow, this is me. I see myself in that spot. Or I'm glad, finally someone's putting a relevant ad out there. And the point isn't to speak to everyone, it's to speak very uniquely, very specifically. And in the specific, you arrive at the universal. Because even if you're not a parent, like I said, this will relate to you. So, key takeaways from running a lone wolf team to a wolf pack team and keeping that collaborative spirit alive is to make sure that you ask the right questions. When is the last time you felt really proud? It might have been a really, really long time. What do you need for me to do your best work? Be prepared to be that advocate and that leader for the team. And what kind of work would get you really excited to show up every day? That's who you want on your team. You want people who are excited to be there. You don't want the people who feel like they're a Kinko's and a Vistaprint. But in time, you can really shape those perspectives if you give them a chance. So, three case studies and three lessons with Robert Kappa, our hero, as our spirit guide. I still think about him all the time. Overcoming pitfalls, really learn to love that process. What can you learn from failure? And how can you find a way to love the process? Surround yourself with people who disagree with you. Have that confidence and that courage to not always be right. Creating emotionally resonant work. Start with what moves you personally. What stories and characters continue to jump out at you? Are there any patterns? Is there any untapped story that you feel that people really need to hear that speaks to you personally? Use that seat at the table wisely. And lastly, keeping collaboration alive. Make sure that you ask your teams the right question, always in a one on one. How can you incentivize them to take risks? They're not going to take risks until they know that you have their back. I was listening to one of the workshops yesterday and on creative leadership, and they were saying people can really sniff out a bad leader. They can sort of feel when something's off. And if you really don't have their back, they will never, ever be willing to take a chance. So be that leader that's there for them and be that front person who takes the heat when things go wrong and takes none of the credit when things go right. And so, with that, if you remember nothing else, if your pictures aren't good enough, you are not close enough. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate your attention. And thank you.
Q&As, please ask them, and they'll pop up here on our screens. Um, good. Are you ready? Yeah.
Am I ready? Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I got this. Okay. Politics.
Politics.
Pardon me?
Politics
Politics,
seems to
yes.
be an inevitable part of any larger corporation. What's your advice for navigating it from creative leadership?
Well, I believe in this sort of Brene Brown school of leading with vulnerability. And I think that, again, as a wonderful comment came up yesterday that resonated with me a day later, people sniff out a phony. Your team is going to sniff out if you're not on their side. And I think you absolutely have to be honest with the team and give them space to talk openly about what they're experiencing and be that empathetic sounding board for them. As far as navigating what the business at hand, you every business is gonna have a different appetite for making politics part of their brand. Again, like, when we pitched the LeBron idea, it was like, "Whoa, is this" they're careful, like, we're not gonna do anything that looks like a male-female challenge if it's healthy and positive, whatever. So, all of your ideas have to fit within the larger business perspective, but I think as a person, you have to be able to be there for your team and create a safe space for people to communicate openly with you.
Good. Perfect. Thank you. Next one here. Do you think AI is a good tool for getting unstuck in the creative process and generate some ideas to begin with?
I do. Okay, so I tried to come
You
up
have
with a
experience with
I
it.
do, yes.
Okay.
I tried to come up with a Nike commercial for a chocolate brand, and I was like, "Write me a spot. This is what I'm looking for." And it was just absolute crap, right? So, I think a lot of people are gonna talk today about our job in using AI is to feed it the right information. I think if you're feeding it the right information, you're feeding it the right prompts. I think the question for all of us here is to become very literate in using AI as a good partner, but I wouldn't go in looking for, give me 10 ideas on a launching a new chocolate brand that's gonna stand out. You're gonna get a bunch of crap. So yes, great valuable partner and a great idea generator, but you have to feed it the right content first.
Okay, cool. The top one here from Ian, I actually think that's an interesting question as well. Once you've created a great brand campaign, what are the most important things to give it longevity, as in the case of case study 3 in your presentation?
That's a great question. So I will I know Ian. Okay, so from the third case study, the Body by Beach Body, is a really great question because I learned something on that campaign. The hero spot that was about 2 minutes, it was just a brand campaign that we cut down. It heavily featured the mom, and it had moments with dad and grandma. The whole idea was that once mom starts feeling better, the energy of the house changed. We shot 2 days, we shot tons of footage with mom and tons of footage with dad, and then all of them together playing in the backyard. So, in terms of longevity, we wanted to make sure that we could do different cut downs, and you wanna do that for A/B testing as well, and in this case, mom always won, but I know Peloton does that a ton. They have this you want all the footage you can so you can keep cutting it, and then you get to tell your CEO how you amortize that spot. So 3 years later or 2 years later that they're still running it, it's running in different iterations. I'm no longer involved, but you can say a multiplier effect. If we spent 100,000 on that shoot, they've most certainly made $1 million worth of revenue on that. If you want a 10x multiplier, you can prove that. But getting it from different angles and having different story plots that you can break down later will really help with that longevity.
Yeah. I'll take the number 2 from the top here because you talked about the wolf pack and
Yeah.
creating that collaboration,
Yeah.
that team, right, and getting away from the lone wolf. How do you handle cross-team collaboration, the wolf pack disagreements? And who's the mediator, decider, and how do you keep everyone happy and motivated?
Oh, okay. Can't keep everybody happy or motivated. I feel like that's not the job. The job is to give people opportunities.
Mm,
My job is to keep the business on track to make sure that everybody has jobs. So I don't think there's people on my team who probably don't even like me. So that is highly possible. I want to put that out there. But cross team collaboration and disagreements. Um, I do mediate a lot, and I always keep my eye on, like, what is the intent of the project, and is this gonna help us get closer and closer to that intent, or is this taking us sideways? I listened to an interview with, gosh, you guys will probably know it. Who directed The Brutalist? Brady Corbet. He was talking about at the end of the day, you need everybody on set, everybody on your team, you need their unique skills, but you don't know all those jobs that they do, but you're the captain of the ship and you have to steer it and you have to keep delivering on those business needs. And so ultimately you have to be the person who decides the team, otherwise you have a Lord of the Flies situation. If it's a free for all, you won't get the thing done and it won't deliver on the business goals. You have to defend those numbers at the end of the day. You have to defend those projects.
good. Now I'm going
Yeah,
number
please.
3 from the bottom here. How do you convince a brand you work with that you don't need to be so literal with creative to connect with a customer, that sales can still happen by telling a brand story
Uh,
instead of the specific product story?
well, that's why I started with the rest in peace. May they forever rest in peace case studies. I have not always succeeded at this. I think this is done when you kick off the project. You're going to ask the first question you've got to ask the briefer is what do you want the consumer to do when they see this? And if they say buy something, then you're not making a brand spot, you're making a product spot. And then you're gonna make the best product spot you can, but you've got to make that spot and orient towards you're helping them down the funnel and they're clicking purchase. That is a totally different spot. So I would say that happens at the kickoff. You have to ask your leadership and you have to get it in writing. What do you want the consumer to do? Are we literally just making a brand story? Because that will not that you'll get that'll amortize later. You're gonna get different activations. You might get more website hits. You might get more organic followers, but you're probably not gonna get sales.
Now I'll go with the top one here, which is maybe a little bit off your presentation, but more like into your personal journey here. What was the process like for you navigating from photographer to a creative director?
That's a really, really good question. I've had many, many steps. So it went from photographer to studio manager to the manager of a performance creative team at HelloFresh that ended up being really successful because I was pretty good at process and I was good at metrics and getting results out of the team. And then from there, someone gave me a chance at Beachbody. I think people were attracted to my background because I could keep the aesthetic in line. I could deliver at a high quality, but I could also get things to perform. So I would say there were little micro steps there. It was photographer, studio manager, performance creative team, and now more creative direction.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'll maybe try to combine two here. If I take the second one from the top, what's your view on using freelancers for your shot crew versus in-house teams? Do you have a preference? And is there something happening with talent cost and usage that also has an impact on that?
Yeah, I would say so freelancers, I've usually had the LeBron shoot was mostly freelance, working with agency partners and production partners. A couple of us were in-house. And then the Beachbody commercial was the opposite. It was all in-house, the entire thing from beginning to end, which has never happened in my career, where they had that many resources in-house that were just kind of on the bench. Talent cost usage evolving, I think maybe you were talking about model. I will say from freelancer costs, I feel like everything's going down. I think people are having a hard time defending their day rates. Everyone wants to pay a little bit less. And then usage, I think everyone that I've worked with is looking for rights in perpetuity. So that's super challenging because I love creatives and I don't want to be cheap with people.
Okay, good. Someone took away our questions. I guess that means
Alexander is ready
and
to
I can also see
go.
we're 40 seconds from running out. Um,
Thanks, pal.
thank you
I appreciate
very, very much.
Thank you,
A pleasure.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.